time now for us to have a glimpse of European politics, and there have been some updates on some development on Brexit in the UK and on migration in Germany. Thomas Power is standing by as usual all the way in Germany. Let's start with the UK and the Brexit. Thomas, it's good to have you once again. Give us a summary of the latest update on the Brexit.
Well, the new round of negotiations between the European Union and the United Kingdom is underway. That's the fifth round of negotiations. And it is particularly important, this fifth round of negotiations, because it comes just before European leaders will meet next week to decide and to discuss whether there has been enough progress to move forward. Up to now, the discussions have focused on three key areas, one of them being, for example, the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, what would happen there. A second one, a very important one, what would happen to the Europeans who are in the United Kingdom and the British citizens who currently live and work in the European Union. And the third one, which is a very problematic one as well, the financial implications, how to disentangle the UK from the EU budget and how much money would the UK have to pay on that. Whereas some people have said that there has been progress, other people say that progress has indeed been slow, and there are people who are even skeptical that they can come to some sort of agreement when they have to come to that agreement. But it's something else that's been clear in the last few days is that both the UK government and European leaders are certainly at odds in some circumstances. And for example, Theresa May, the UK Prime Minister, recently said that the ball was now in the European side, on the European court, and the European side said that it was up to the UK to take the next step. So you can see there, Gifty, that things are not necessarily very clear. From a German standpoint, Angela Merkel has said on many occasions that her priorities will be obviously to try and protect the interests of the German citizens that are in the United Kingdom, that she will obviously try and get and find a good deal both for the UK and for the European Union, a deal that wouldn't necessarily harm, for example, German interests, European interests when it comes to trade or to business, for example. And also making sure that the focus has to be, from a European perspective, on the remaining EU 27 members. So yes, it was a very painful decision from the UK, but at least from a European standpoint, they want to focus on the development of the European project, and that's something that we've seen certainly from Angela Merkel and, for example, the French counterpart Emmanuel Macron.
Okay. Since you're just linking that to Germany, let's come back on to Germany now. My understanding is that there have been some introduction of new policies concerning migration, and this is right after the election, the very interesting election, by the way. What are these policies?
Well, after the election, as you mentioned, Angela Merkel and her Conservative bloc were sort of tasked with the decision or with the need to find coalition partners to form a government. And the possible coalition partners of that Conservative bloc could be the Greens and the Liberals. But when it comes to finding common ground, it has proven to be very difficult. And one of the areas where there are many difficulties is certainly migration, and not only among the Conservative bloc and the two possible minor partners, but also between the Conservative bloc members themselves, the CDU, the party of Angela Merkel, and the CSU, the Bavarian sister party. And it's precisely within that Conservative bloc that the leaders met on Sunday and agreed a common position on migration, which, for example, includes their goal or their standard, if you will, to accept a maximum of 200,000 refugees a year. It's not something that is set in stone. It could move up or down depending on the national or international circumstances, but it is a common position by the two members of that Conservative bloc, a common position that they will now take to the other possible coalition partners. That said, it is still unclear whether the other coalition partners will even agree on that. Already the Greens have said that they dislike the idea of having such a cap or such a number, which would be a target regarding migration. But at least from the Conservative point of view, from Angela Merkel's point of view, it's a common position that she can present, and in the next week those negotiations will start. The Conservative bloc meeting with the different partners, then meeting all together and starting the negotiations, but those negotiations will certainly take a long time, Gifty.
But this information is in the public domain. Is this something that's already in the public domain because we're discussing it at the moment? How then has the response been to it?
Well, it is certainly in the public domain. They met for a very long time on Sunday. That meeting was private, but then late at night on Sunday and also on Monday, Angela Merkel, the leader of the CDU, and Horst Seehofer of the Bavarian sister party, CSU, held a press conference in which they presented those policies. It's important to stress that these are policy proposals that don't mean anything for Germany's current political policies on migration. In other words, the policies that are already, that you know already in migration, won't change. It is something internal in the Conservative bloc that will be then discussed with the future coalition partners, and these coalition partners will then have to agree on the contract coalition, coalition contract, if you will, and then it would be something that could affect Germany's policies on migration. But for now, it's something internal, and something internal that, as I mentioned, has not been met very positively by the other possible members of the German coalition, if indeed they end up forming a coalition.
Well, we'll see what the general populace of Germany and perhaps Europe have to say about this once it becomes something that's operational. But thank you very much for leaving here, Thomas Sparrow. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, bringing us up to speed on what's happening in Europe. Of course, we've been looking at Brexit, the latest development on that, and the fact that there are some upcoming new policies regarding migration in Germany.